Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, a lot, and I mean a lot to talk about today. And I think there's some big issues outside of the Iran war that we need to discuss. But before we get to that, big vote yesterday. The Democrats went all in. Now, what is very clear, there's no question about it. As I talked about yesterday, whatever your feelings are about the war, you're for, you're against, you're not certain, you're in the middle, whatever it may be, what is clear, what is undeniable, is that now as we enter the fifth, going into the sixth day of this bombing campaign, this air naval campaign, it has been an extraordinary performance by the United States and Israeli military. Iran's military is being systematically degraded, dismantled, and destroyed in the eyes of the world. Its navy now is at the bottom of the ocean. Their ballistic missiles are being smashed. Their launchers are being destroyed one by one. Their entire regime is being utterly decapitated. Their air defenses have been obliterated. As Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, yesterday rightly said, we now control the skies over Iran. And now we can bomb them at will, pound them at will, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This could go on now for week after week after week. And the Iranians are essentially helpless, powerless to stop us. So there is no question that militarily, this campaign, Operation Epic Fury, is exceeding, as Trump admitted yesterday, even his own expectations. He said, I knew it was going to be a smashing success. Honestly, I did not think it was going to be this good. In fact, very quickly, listen now to President Trump. He was at a roundtable. Ostensibly, it's about artificial intelligence, AI, and how it's going to start to dominate the economy and the future. But everybody wants to talk about the war in Iran, obviously. Listen to Trump saying, people are asking me, how would you grade this war? 0 to 10, on a scale to 10. 0 being a military disaster, 10 being a military success. Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 1, Mike. It's spinning? Okay. Yeah, so we're getting some technical issues. Mike is going to try to work through that. Essentially, he said he's more than pleased that he would give this a 15 on 10. And he said what you're watching now is the greatest military in the world, unchained, unshackled, no rules of engagement that keep tying our hands. I am letting the military do what we do best, which is win and unleash hell and fire and fury. And that is exactly what they are doing. Now, it is very, very clear that, no one is disputing this. So the Democrats now clearly, and they've said this repeatedly, want Trump to lose the war. Okay, you got it back, Mike? All right, listen now to President Trump. Roll cut 1, Mike.
These are exciting times. I think you probably want to speak about war rather than this, but this is very important. This is very important, and we're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15. And we're going to continue to do well. We have the greatest military in the world by far.
Fingers crossed. I mean, again, as I said yesterday, I don't want to be premature. Don't want to jump the gun. It's not over. Even the military operation is not over. And then to me, the really challenging part, this is the key, is going to be the regime change and what comes after the war. Okay, so let's not get ahead of our skis. But so far, knock on wood, fingers crossed, it is going better than anyone could have possibly expected. Now, the Democrats, and this is to me where I almost feel sick in my stomach. Whatever your feelings are about the war, they are openly rooting for Iran to win. They are openly rooting for the United States to lose. And we got this call from Bill in Sudbury yesterday, and he basically, echoed the talking points of many Democrats, that the Ayatollahs are not irrational, that the Ayatollahs have a winning war strategy, and that you are going to see this develop over the next couple of weeks, and that the Ayatollahs are going to deliver eventually a shocking, devastating military defeat upon the United States. Now, I don't know where they're getting this. I know where they're getting it. They're getting it from their hatred for President Trump. This is what happens when you become utterly unhinged and deranged and blinded by hatred. You see it, for example, in nasty divorce cases, where after a while, no one makes sense. It doesn't matter who was right or who was wrong from at the beginning. After a while, the hatred is so deep, it's so poisonous, it's so cancerous that nobody makes sense. Everybody's irrational. They can't see clearly. Well, that's where a lot of the Democrats are coming from. There's no question. They want America to lose, and they want Iran to win. And I want you to think about this. A brutal Islamo-fascist theocratic regime that oppresses its people, that just a month ago massacred 32,000 unarmed innocent protesters. Just to give you the latest. Never mind being the largest sponsor of terrorism around the world. And you cry for them? And you support them? And you're rooting for them to defeat your own country? While our men and women are in harm's way? These people are sick. This is beyond treasonous. This is evil. This is sick. That's how much now, how mad they have now become, how insane they have now become in their Trump derangement syndrome. And so they tried their last bolt to stop Trump. They fired their last bolt. Yesterday, the Democrats introduced a war powers resolution that they wanted to advance, that if would have effectively not just tied President Trump's hands, but it would have reined in and limited his ability to conduct the military operation we are now currently engaged in against the mullahs in Tehran. It would have effectively forced Trump to end the campaign in the middle, as we're on the verge of winning the war, which means it would have, think about this, our troops would have had to stop what they're doing and pull out in the middle of their operations. A, this would have been a military fiasco. B, I'm telling you, it would have put the lives of our service members at risk. It's unbelievable. It was naked, open sabotage. That's what this was. While our troops are fighting. Agree, disagree with the mission, agree, disagree with the war. You don't undercut the troops. You don't sabotage the troops in the middle of them fighting a war. Now, 46 Democrats, 46 voted in favor of the War Powers Resolution. One Republican joined these band of traitors. And that was Senator Rand Paul. To his eternal shame. I understand he's a non-interventionist. I'm a non-interventionist. I understand he's generally an anti-war conservative, or he's more libertarian than conservative, but let that go. So am I. But you don't sabotage our troops in the middle of a military operation, in the middle of a military campaign. What are you, on drugs? So Rand Paul sided with the treasonous Democrats. 52 Republicans opposed the War Powers Resolution, and Fetterman allied with us. He crossed the aisle, so basically he canceled out Rand Paul. And Fetterman crossed the aisle and was the 53rd vote. So the measure failed. 47-53, they were not able to implement the War Powers Resolution and effectively hijack and prevent Trump from conducting the war and overseeing the war as the battle continues and the campaign rages. But to me, this is the bigger issue, and I want to hear from you. Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House, and this is the man that will be House Speaker if the Democrats win the midterms. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, what I want to do is I want to ask the best audience in the business, Kuhner Country, have the Democrats now crossed a red line? In other words, have they now crossed the Rubicon? It's one thing, obviously, to oppose a war, as I do. I'm anti-war in general. You know my position on this. But it's another thing to be rooting for the other country, to be rooting for your enemy, your adversary, the country you're fighting against. Never mind the Ayatollahs. Never mind those Islamo-Nazi butchers with, their hands in blood. American blood, Iranian blood, Israeli blood, you name it. And now you have Hakeem Jeffries, you have many Democrats openly calling for the defeat of the United States, hoping for Trump to lose, and trying to effectuate that by pushing forth, yesterday was in the Senate, today it's going to be in the House, a vote on the War Powers Resolution that had it passed, they went down, it was rejected, 47-53, but had it passed, Trump would have to call off the military campaign immediately unless he got an explicit authorization of support or approval from Congress. In other words, they would have cut the knees out from underneath Trump as a military commander and literally sabotaged Operation Epic Fury in the middle of the campaign. As our fighter jets are flying over Iran, as our ships are battling Iranian ships, as we are desperately doing everything we can to stop ballistic missiles that Iran is firing from hitting military targets, our bases in the region, our embassies, our consulates, and that of our allies. It was unbelievable that they went ahead with this. But that's how desperate they are to defeat Trump and to have him lose this war. And if that means sabotaging our military campaign and humiliating the United States on the world stage, never mind potentially leading to our troops being killed, the Democrats don't care because they're determined to get Trump at any and all costs. Now, to me, that's treason. I don't know what's more. I can't think of something more treasonous than this. Now, luckily, it failed. The Senate now has given Trump the green light to continue the bombing and the naval and missile campaign that is smashing the Ayatollahs and the regime, the Islamo-fascist regime, to pieces. Now they're going to have the vote today in the House. It's now mostly symbolic because the Senate has now rejected the War Powers Resolution. So there's no chance of this, forcing Trump's hand, even if it passes the House, but it looks like it's expected to fail. And by the way, just to be clear, even if it passed the House and even if it passes the Senate or passed the Senate, Trump said he would veto it, and they clearly didn't have two-thirds of both chambers to override the veto. So they were never going to win. But you see, it's irrational now. It's just attack, sabotage, undermine, subvert, for the sake of subverting and attacking. Now, let me throw one more log on the fire, and then I want to go to you. 617-266-6868. Question number one. Are the Democrats now the party of treason? Are they now, in your view, have they now crossed the line by openly rooting for the mullahs and the ayatollahs to defeat the United States? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the second point, and this is to me almost as important as the first point. The bombing campaign that we are now watching, clearly now, victory is within sight. We're looking at maybe another week, 10 days. We shall see. War is always unpredictable. But with this war now looking more favorably in terms of on the battlefield, the question now is, what should Trump do next? What should he do next? He is under now growing pressure from Congress, from his advisors, that he should not put U.S. troops or boots on the ground to effectuate complete regime change and bring in a stable successor regime. Apparently, even many Republicans who voted against the War Powers Resolution, supporting Trump, giving him the green light to continue to wage Operation Epic Fury, apparently told Trump in private yesterday, you have your red lines, we have our red lines. Our red line is, if you decide to introduce boots on the ground, we will insist that you go to Congress for either a declaration of war or an authorization for war. That boots on the ground, or if this operation goes on for, let's say, another month or 6 weeks, in other words, if it becomes more open-ended, then they said, we're going to have no choice. We can't let this go on forever. Congress is going to have its say, and we will demand an authorization or a declaration of war vote. So Trump now fully understands that if he does want to put boots on the ground, and he says he doesn't, but if he does, he's going to then have to get full authorization from Congress. So Trump now is looking for anyone within the regime that he thinks is viable, anyone from the Iranian military who he thinks is viable, or now maybe even the opposition that can work with the United States. Okay, so just very, very quickly, because the lines are jammed, so I want to go to the phone lines. Do you believe now, by openly rooting for the United States to lose, and really they want Trump to lose, even more than the United States to lose, they want the Iranian military to somehow rebound off of this blistering offensive. I don't know how, but anyway, and bog our troops down, or to be more accurate, bog our planes down, our ships down, our forces down, and just bleed us and bleed us and bleed us. And eventually we are humiliated, defeated, and we leave this war with our tail between their legs. Okay, between our legs. And it's now clear they are rooting for an Iranian victory over the United States. Is this treason? To me, this is almost a definition of treason, but I want to hear from you. And yes, Trump won a big victory in Congress yesterday on the War Powers Resolution, the Senate in particular. However, many Republicans have told him now, we have a red line. If you're going to bring in U.S. boots on the ground, you must go to Congress. You have to get a vote, an authorization vote, or we will no longer support you. Ditto, if this war goes on for, say, another 4, 5, 6 weeks, if it starts to look open-ended, he has to go back to Congress for a declaration or authorization of war. My question to you, do you agree with these Republicans who are now putting certain red lines for Trump? 617-266-6868. Jack in Malden. You're going to kick us off, Jack. Thanks for holding and welcome.
How you doing, Jeff?
Very good. How are you, Jack?
Good. I just want to tell your audience that Iran launched missiles into Turkey. Turkey's part of NATO. That's a clear violation of Article 5 of the NATO Pact, which says once you attack one country in NATO, you attack all of them. So it's a clear violation of that. Remember when all the libs said we had to support Ukraine because if they didn't, Russia might attack Poland. That would cause us to get sucked in to send the U.S. troops into Ukraine. Well, Iran just attacked Turkey. There's 32 nations in NATO, so now we have no choice. And also, it makes that declaration of war moot, because now we're obligated, and so is the rest of NATO, to go after Iran.
Well, Jack, I talked about this. This broke, I think, don't quote me, Jack, but at about 8 o'clock yesterday morning, and I reported it the moment it happened. And I said, look, this is how irrational, honestly, I'm sorry, but there's no other way to put it, stupid the Iranian mullahs are. They're not just, indiscriminately firing missiles and drones against their neighbors who initially were opposed to the war because they fear it's going to destabilize the region. Remember, they live in that area. We don't. They do. So even their arch enemies, Saudi Arabia, these are all Sunni states who hate the Shia, the Shia Iranians, the Shia Muslims that run Iran. But, that's, United Arab Emirates, that's Kuwait, that's obviously the Saudis. I could run down the whole list. These are countries that, Bahrain, on and on, that said, no, we don't want you to attack Iran because the spillover is going to affect us. But those idiots are now launching all these drone and missile attacks that's driving all of them into our camp. And then the one country left that was semi-sympathetic to Iran because they fear that the Kurds now are going to rise in Iran and hook up with the Kurds in Iraq, who could eventually hook up with the Kurds in Turkey, is, of course, the Turkish regime. And so what did these stupid mullahs do? They launched not one, but 2 missiles right into Turkey. And it was NATO defenses that had to shoot them down. So as I pointed out yesterday, and you're reiterating it now, Jack, you're completely right. Turkey is a member of NATO. So in theory, if Trump wanted to, if the Europeans wanted to, if the Turks wanted to, if NATO wanted to, they could invoke Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. And now everybody is obligated to join the United States and Israel and literally just wipe the mullahs off once and for all. Now, Turkey doesn't want to do that because, as I told you, they fear that this is going to embolden the Kurds. The Europeans, well, they don't want to get into a war because we're doing all the heavy lifting. So they're like, why should we get involved? Let the Americans and the Israelis take all the risks and spend all the money and do all the fighting. But you're completely right. If NATO was an honest institution, an authentically honest, sincere institution, they would come out and say, we are now at war with Iran. They have attacked a fellow NATO member, and we had to defend them by shooting down 2 missiles from Iran. An attack on one is an attack on all. This is an attack on NATO. NATO will now respond. Instead, Jack, nothing. So the Democrats are now not just trying to sabotage us, our troops, and the Israelis, obviously, but they're now trying to sabotage all of NATO. I'm telling you, Jack, you can't make this up. Final word to you, Jack.
No, I'm just agreeing with you there, Jeff. I mean, they're jumping up and down how great NATO is, and now we have a clear violation of Article 5, and they're still trying to put through these declaration of war resolutions. They really look foolish.
Oh, well, yeah, and more than that, Jack, of course, you're right. You're completely right. But they wanted us to go to war with Russia over Ukraine. And as you rightly pointed out, why? Well, because if Russia beats Ukraine, this was the theory, if they conquer Ukraine, then Poland's next. And Poland's a member of NATO. You attack NATO, a member of NATO, it's an attack on all. So preemptively, let's fight the Russians before they attack a NATO ally. Okay, forget preemptively. Iran just attacked a NATO ally. And look, I'm no fan of the Turks. Okay, let me be, I don't mean the Turkish people. I'm talking about the government, the regime. To me, what they've done to the Armenians is disgusting. What they have done to Christians is disgusting. What they're trying to do now in many parts of the Middle East is disgusting. I think they're trying to resurrect in some ways the Ottoman Empire. So I'm no fan of Turkey. Believe me, my blood isn't running hot. Ooh, we have to defend Turkey. But they are a member. I'm sorry, I have to call it the way I see it. Are they a member of NATO? Yes. Were they just attacked by Iran? Yes. Is there Article 5? Yes. Is this grounds to invoke Article 5? Of course. So they wanted us to have World War III with Mother Russia over a non-NATO ally, Ukraine, because it may eventually lead to a war with a NATO ally like Poland. But when an actual NATO ally is attacked, suddenly everybody's playing deaf, dumb, and stupid. So there you go. Honestly, Jack, I don't know again, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk like this, but I don't know who's more idiotic. Honestly, who's more stupider? No, who's stupider? Who's more stupid? The Democrats or the Ayatollahs? Really, I mean, not that I would ever be in a regime like this, but if I was there, I'd be like, we're going to launch missiles into Turkey? Why? like, why? I think they're the only country left that doesn't hate us. Why? And then we'll be at war with all of NATO? Like what? Being at war with the United States and Israel, and as I'm talking, because missiles and bombs are landing all around us. And I'm like, can I just get out of here? I don't want to get bombed and be killed like the supreme leader and every top general and every top political leader. Can I just get out of this meeting? And I'd be like, guys, I think we got enough with the United States and Israel. We don't need to bring all of NATO against us. Allah, death to America, death to America, death to America, Allah, Allah, Allah. That's what you're dealing with. And you have Democrats here who are political jihadists, who are death to Trump, death to Trump, death to Trump. That's why they've now formed an alliance. That, to me, is what is absolutely incredible. It's just incredible. So you have the Ayatollahs now who are being mourned, okay? The supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, that monster, that mass murderer, was given a sympathetic, warm, almost, not almost positive obituary in the New York Times and the Washington Post. This is fire and fury now, what is happening to the Iranian military. 6:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is now breaking news. Literally broke maybe 3 minutes ago. Our forces have now destroyed and taken out, they have sunk Iran's top naval ship. We are decimating their navy. Much of their navy now is at the bottom of the ocean. This was their top warship, and it is now gone. It's finished. We have sunk it. This is a massive blow now to the Iranian military, to the Iranian mullahs, to the regime. This is where they are being decimated. And I have to give a hat tip to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. And, of course, obviously, to the president. When they came in, what did they say? You're going to see a new military. This is not going to be Joe Biden's military. This is not going to be Barack Obama's military. This is going to be a non-woke, non-DEI, non-transgender, non-politically correct military. It's not there for social experimentation or social engineering. It's not there to try your woke DEI experiments. It is there to be the most lethal, devastating, ferocious, efficient fighting force in the world. Okay? They're warriors, as Hegseth said in the video that he released a few days ago to the troops. You are warriors. Go and do what you do best. And that is win wars. And the military aspect now of this it's truly incredible. There's no other way to put it. The Iranian regime in front of our eyes is being ground to dust. And they are almost now powerless to try to stop it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Mark on Messenger. Jeff, to lighten the mood a little bit, because, war is always, it's very anxious. Everybody's stressed. Emotions are running high, obviously, especially when our troops are being deployed and lives are at risk. And we've already lost 6 service members, so everybody's on edge. And of course, we should be on edge. We should be anxious. That's the nature of war. So to lighten it up a little bit, he said, Jeff, what is the difference between Catholics and the Iranian mullahs? The answer is, when Catholics see white smoke, we elect a new pope. When the mullahs see white smoke, that means they just got a new parking lot. I got to tell you, there's a lot of parking lots now in Iran. Let's just put it that way. Holy mackerel. I mean, you name it. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the mullahs, the political leadership. I mean, everything, their top military bases. I mean, everything's getting flattened. Everything. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Are Democrats rooting for Iran to win this war? Let me, one more time. Are Democrats rooting, cheering for Iran to win this war? A, yes. B, no. You know where I stand. To me, I think the evidence is overwhelming. They're obviously cheering for the mullahs and the Iranian regime to win this war against us and our country and our troops. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn is in national ER. You can also vote via X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn is in national ER. Listen now to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying there are 2 things that are driving this. The media, who are desperately trying to convince the American people that we are losing this war, when we're obviously, from a military point of view, clearly winning this war. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality. The terms of this war will be set by us at every step.
Look, there's no question. Everybody including, by the way, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff. They were telling President Trump, we're expecting a 4 or 5 week operation. This is Iran. They have a serious navy. They have one of the biggest ballistic missile arsenals in the world. Many of them were deep in these underground bunkers. That's where they were stockpiling them. They've got a ferocious military. They had a military command and a command structure that, experienced. They've been fighting all kinds of proxy wars now for 35, 40 years. So they bought a lot of Chinese and Russian technology, which is now proving to be garbage. Air defense systems, for example, missile defense systems, which are just being shredded. Our military technology, clearly in this war, you can see it, and Venezuela a little bit, but that didn't last very long. This obviously has lasted longer, has shown that in terms of military technology, we are way above the Chinese and way above the Russians. There's no question now. So, in a way, what we've now done is we've exposed Iran to be a paper tiger. On paper, they look pretty formidable. In reality, they're being absolutely eviscerated. I mean, they're evaporating. Their naval power is evaporating. Their ballistic missiles are evaporating. Their military infrastructure is evaporating. And slowly, the regime is now just evaporating. It's been completely decapitated. So we shall see how much longer now they can survive. 617-266-6868. Now, this is almost like saying the sky is blue. Again, it doesn't matter whether you're for or against the war. I mean, it's obvious who's winning this war. And winning it easily. In fact, surpassing the expectations of even our own Joint Chiefs of Staff. They were looking at a 4 or 5 week operation. Now they're saying this may be over in another week or so. In other words, in maybe 10 days or 2 weeks, this baby's over militarily. Like, that's just, it's incredible. It's historical. There's no other way to put it. Listen now to Pete Hegseth. One more cut because I want to go to the phones. He's now asked by a reporter, Hakeem Jeffries has come out and said, it's going to end bad for the U.S. military. You guys are going to lose this war. And almost like he's rooting for the United States to lose this war. Listen now to Hegseth's response. Roll cut 10, Mike.
With respect to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' statement that the Iran mission will end in failure, what kind of message does that send to our enemies, and what does it do to the motivation of our troops?
Well, I've been through that movie before with the Democrats rooting against the country. Our generation saw that in our battlefields. I think it's pretty unprecedented and unfortunate that it would occur 4 days in to an operation where, as the chairman laid out, America's best are operating in an incredibly challenging environment where they're having incredible success, but they're meeting a determined adversary. And he's been privy to briefs that we've provided. He knows how effective this has been. He's being disingenuous, which we're used to.
Okay, he's trying to be a little polite, and he is the Secretary of War. You know, he's not a talk show host like I am. Okay, Hakeem Jeffries is a liar. Let me say what Hegseth is really saying in diplomatic speak. Disingenuous. He's a liar. He's a bull, you know what. I can't say it. He's a BSer. So, no, they've shown him all the satellite photos of the Navy now at the bottom of the sea, how many ballistic missiles they've destroyed, how low their stockpile is. By the way, the bigger part, besides the stockpile now, they're down to, what is it now, a third. That's it. 2/3 of their ballistic stockpile is already destroyed or gone. They have no more launchers, or increasingly, they were destroying all their launchers. So who cares how many missiles you have if you can't launch them? So they're showing all this, how the regime is being militarily dismantled piece by piece and utterly degraded. Frankly, they're being decimated. And he's running out there saying we're losing the war. And I had a liberal, I don't want to say who, I had a liberal, works here at iHeart, very nice person. I really mean this. Very nice, always been very polite to me. We had a conversation yesterday, okay? In a nutshell. She's telling me we're losing the war in Iran. I'm like, what? Look, you may be against the war in Iran. That's something else. But how are we losing the war? Oh, no. Don't you see what the media is saying? The Iranians are firing all these ballistic missiles. They're hitting 14 different countries, and they're hitting our consulate. They're hitting our embassy. I go, but we've evacuated our consulates and embassies. They're hitting empty buildings. And most of the places they're hitting are hotels. These other, countries like, I don't know, Dubai or Bahrain or Kuwait or whatever. I go, they're hitting hotels, they're hitting civilian apartment buildings, civilian neighborhoods. All they're doing is enraging their neighbors and turning their neighbors against them. How is Iran winning this war? And no, Iran's winning. We're going down to defeat. And by the way, the reason why we're in this war, and this is where all this liberal media propaganda, if you can believe this, to protect Trump from the Epstein files. And I said, well, okay, why is he waging this war now? What is it in the Epstein files, like what's he trying to cover up? That he's a pedophile. I'm like, well, where's your evidence that he's a pedophile? Well, remember I talked about this, that one discredited claim that was, the FBI. They said this is completely uncorroborated, completely BS. This crazy person that said that Trump molested her. Okay, at the time, she claimed to be underage. And it turned out the whole thing was laughable. Well, there it is. It's right there in the Epstein files. And I'm like, oh, my God. They so hate him that they're willing to believe the most insane conspiracy theories. And I said to her, look, let's just assume, I'm trying to reason with a liberal, right? It's hard. So I said, let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that everything what you're saying is right. That he's in the Epstein files, and they've got him, and it's with an 17-year-old girl, underage at the time. This war will come to an end. It has to come to an end. Every war comes to an end. The Epstein files are still going to be there. And if you believe the polls, and you do, because she's saying he's going to get wiped out in the midterms, well, the Democrats are coming back to power in November. So they can just go back to the Epstein files, and there he is. So how is he burying the Epstein files and apparently his pedophilia by going to war? By your own definition, you're saying it's there. They have all the compromat, the compromising pictures and allegations and all this BS, and the Democrats are roaring back to power. So how is this going to cover up what he did? And you could tell, like, ding, like, oh. So obviously he's not going to war to cover up the Epstein files. Like, hello? I mean, but this is what I'm saying. You're dealing with a portion of our population that just, I don't know what to tell you, irrational, deranged, delusional, seething with hatred. So much hatred that they are now siding with one of the most evil, anti-Semitic, anti-American, despicable regimes on the planet. When you're mourning the death of the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, I mean, seriously, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I mean, this, you've really, as they say, you've gone off the deep end. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Jimmy in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
I want to bring up two things I want to say about the first question you asked, and
yes,
something about the Kurds. that Trump had something to do in Syria. But let me say the first question, Jeff. I consider the Democrats the party of evil. You know why? Did you notice with our troops there and the Israeli troops, none of them has asked for us to pray for our safety of our troops over there fighting this conflict. I've called my relatives in Poland and England, and I told them to get their parishioners, if they can, and they said they'll do it, to pray for our safety of our troops in this conflict. Why didn't the Democrats, any of them, come out and say, pray for our troops? They're Americans just like them.
Oh, Jimmy, you're completely right. You're absolutely, completely right. And look, you know, the other thing I find very disturbing, when you look at the State of the Union, and I want you to finish your second point, by the way, Jimmy. I promise I'm not cutting you off, but just, you know, we used to be against dual loyalty in this country. Like it was just, especially in politics, or for, you know, members of Congress or, you know, the House, the Senate, whatever, never mind working in the administration. You look at members of Congress now, especially Democrats, and they will either have simply a Ukrainian flag pin on them, not even the American flag, or an American Ukrainian, like two flags, or American Palestinian, or whatever. Now you're starting to see Iranian flags are now. By the way, the Democrats now are flying Iranian flags. Oh, by the way, also when they were really going after ICE for that, it was American Mexican flags. So to me, this is what's incredible. Aren't we supposed to have loyalty to our country? I mean, sure, there may be allies around the world. We like them. We're sympathetic to them. We want to help them. But to me, you should only be wearing one pin, especially if you're to me, every American, but especially if you're a member of Congress, for God's sake. You represent the government of the United States. You represent the citizens of the United States. There should be only one flag that you put, on whatever, on your chest or wherever it may be. Okay, on your lapel or whatever. There's only one flag you should be, saluting. There's only one flag you should be concerned about. That's the American flag. Jimmy, those days are long gone, my friend. Please keep going. Make your other point, Jimmy.
We had the Syrian conflict with ISIS, and Obama called them the JV team. When Trump became president, remember what he did? He got the Kurds with our CIA so we wouldn't have to use American troops on the ground. We had them and CIA calling in airstrikes where we took out Big Daddy, the leader of ISIS, and we did it in no time at all with Trump. He didn't play around like he is right now with Iran, because he saw that the days are coming where if these guys get nuclear warheads, they're going to come for us. And he has family members. He's thinking of his kids, their kids. And he's thinking of us Americans. And these fools don't see that. I'm telling you, they're demented, these Democrats.
Jimmy, they're the party of evil. They're a communist party. They're an anti-American party. They're increasingly now a very deeply anti-Semitic party. They're an anti-white party. They are anti-white racists. This is now the core of the left and the core of the Democratic Party. They're not just anti-white male, they're anti-white female. They're becoming very anti-white. It's a bigoted party. And now they're the party of treason. And I don't say this lightly, because I'm being accused of treason, because I think I'm very worried about the end game, as you know, Jimmy. I'm worried about when the regime topples, what happens after the regime. That's why I'm very nervous and skeptical about this operation, even though, look, it's obvious it's a brilliant military operation. So I'm going to breathe much easier, and I will be the first to admit I was wrong. Oh, do I want to come out and say I was wrong? That Trump was a master at this and he played the whole thing like a fiddle. But I'm very, very worried about what happens after our military wins this war. In other words, what happens to Iran after their military's been smashed and the mullahs have been overthrown? Is it going to break up into pieces? Are we going to have a civil war? Are there going to be millions of refugees? Is it going to lead to a massive chaos? Because that would be, I think, a disaster for the region, for Europe, for us, for the world. So that's the part that's always gotten me very nervous. But let that go. Okay, that's forget it. That's not the issue now. I don't know how you could be rooting for the Iranians. The reason why I mention it because I'm being called a traitor. Okay. In fact, Mark Levin is calling me now a woke Reich Nazi. I by the way, I told him to go F himself, just so that you know, on X yesterday. Yeah, I'm a woke Reich Nazi. Half my family were slaughtered in the Holocaust. My grandfather spent 2 years in a Nazi concentration camp, and I'm a freaking Nazi? Okay, so I told him to go F himself. Okay, just super quick, because you need to be aware the Democrats now are really showing their hand, not just on their treason and their anti-Americanism, their defeatism when it comes to the war in Iran, how they're openly now rooting for the Ayatollahs to defeat us. It's unspeakable. It's unbelievable. It's truly, utterly unhinged and mind-boggling. But now, as you know, there's been some primary races. The candidate that defeated Jasmine Crockett to be the Democrat nominee for the U.S. Senate in Texas, Tallarico is his last name. Okay, now listen to this. He's running on a platform, by the way, fully blessed by the Democratic Party, the DNC, in a red state like Texas, that God is transgender. I'm not kidding. That God Almighty is transgender, God is Almighty is non-binary, and to reopen the entire southern border. To have open borders like we had under Biden. And in fact, the phrase or the term that he's using is we have to put back the welcome mat on the front porch of America. And how do you put back the welcome mat on the front porch of America? By opening up the borders and telling the entire world, come on down, baby. That's what's potentially waiting for us in November. God forbid if the Democrats win the midterms. Now, furthermore, to show you how crazier and crazier and more extreme and more hate-filled the party is becoming, I want you to listen now. This is Gavin Newsom. He's one of their front runners. He's one of their top contenders for the Democratic presidential nomination. This is now what he says about Israel. Okay, so to all, everybody who loves Israel, every Jewish American, anybody who's in favor of civilization against Islamic barbarism, I want you to listen to this, because this is now the new line of attack that's coming from Gavin Newsom, because the party has now gone so far to the hard left under AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Mamdani that he has to keep up. Roll cut 21, Mike.
The issue of Bibi's interesting because he's got his own domestic issues. He's trying to stay out of jail. He's got an election coming up. He's potentially on the ropes. He's got folks, the hard line, that want to annex the West Bank. I mean, Freeman and others are talking about it appropriately, sort of an apartheid state. They couldn't even, I mean, we're talking about regime change. For 2 years, they haven't even been able to solve the Hamas question in Israel. So this is, I mean, you know, I want to be careful here, but, you know, in so many ways, that influence in the context of the conversation of where Trump ultimately landed on this is pretty damn self-evident.
So Israel is now an apartheid state. And not only is Israel now an apartheid state, again, it's Mamdani's party. It's AOC, Bernie's, and Mamdani's party now. They're calling the shots. You have to toe the line. But check out this now. We have to end all support for Israel. All military support. Basically now, leave them twisting in the wind. This is no different than what Mamdani is advocating in New York City. Roll cut 21A, Mike.
Do you think, looking down the road, that the United States should consider maybe, rethinking our military support for Israel?
It breaks my heart because the current leadership in Israel is walking us down that path where I don't think you have a choice but that consideration.
So there you go. There you go. He's a little more polished than Mamdani. He's a little more careful, little more cautious. He's a snake oil salesman. He's a used car salesman with the white teeth, that glisten and the gelled hair, the slick hair, and everything with him is poll tested. And, he's got the consultants in his ears. So Mamdani is more raw, more authentic, more real. He hates Jews. He hates America. He's pro-Palestinian all the way, pro-Islam all the way. But make no mistake about it now. You want the Democratic nomination, you got to be a Jew hater. Tom in Florida. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, let me just turn up the speaker. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
Pretty good. I just want you to know we listen to you every day since the show started. And I call every once in a while from Vero Beach. I want to ask a question that I don't hear anybody else asking or commenting on. I heard the Witkoff interview, and I pray that you guys have peace down the road. But my question is, Witkoff said that when he was trying to negotiate with them, that they had 60% enriched uranium hidden somewhere, and he wanted it, and they flat out said no. So my question is, they've got 60% enriched uranium. They can make nuclear bombs within days or weeks. Have we found that?
Tom, can you do me a favor? Mike, to be honest, man, like 5 more seconds, would it kill you? But anyway, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Tom in Florida. Tom, please, I want you to finish your question. You were referring to Steve Witkoff and his claim that the mullahs or the Iranian negotiators said that they had about 60% enriched grade uranium. It doesn't take much more, about another 20-30%, and they could then take it to weapons grade, and that they had enough of a stockpile for up to 11 nuclear bombs. Please pick up where you left off.
Yes, Jeff, that's exactly right. And so my big question is nobody's addressing the fact, where is this uranium? Has it been destroyed? Is it still hidden somewhere? I mean, this could be a very big problem for us. Has anybody talked about that?
Well, I mean, I talked about it 2 days ago, and I can just repeat what I said then. I'm very aware of Witkoff's claim. I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying I don't believe him. I don't know. Maybe the negotiator said something. They're bluffing. They're trying to use leverage. When you're in negotiations, people will say all kinds of things to try to gain the upper hand. What my argument has always been is, if they had this kind of a stockpile of enriched uranium in which they were about to hit breakout, which is what Witkoff said, meaning they were 7 to 10 days away from not 1, not 2, not 3, but 11 nuclear bombs. Show me the evidence. Show me the intelligence. Because if you show the intelligence, 90% of the country will back the war. In fact, to be honest, I'm being serious. If you have that kind of, and that's satellite technology, you could easily produce that kind of evidence, if it exists, that they had that much of a stockpile of enriched uranium at that high level of concentration for 11 nuclear bombs. Then you show the country the evidence, you make your case, you address the country. I would go to Congress right away. You would have overwhelming support. Whether the Democrats want to support it or not is irrelevant. 90% of the American people would back the war. The Democrats would be committing political hiri-kiri if they didn't. Many of them would vote, whether they want to or not. He would have an overwhelming mandate, and he could take us to an all-out war, and we could literally smash Iran, smash the regime, and do what we did to Germany and Japan after World War II. And he would have full support from the American people. The fact that they haven't released the intelligence tells me it's not true. Or they don't have the intelligence. Whatever. So I don't believe it. I call BS on that. And I've been saying this now from the beginning. I call BS on many things. I think they wanted this war, and they saw an opportunity for this war, and they went for the kill. And which is fine. I mean, look, really, I hate the Ayatollahs. Everybody's like emailing me and saying, Jeff, have you forgotten about 1979? Have you forgotten about the barracks in Beirut? 241 Marines killed. Have you forgotten about the USS Cole? Have you forgotten about the thousands of soldiers, our men and women, that they either murdered or maimed in Iraq when we were in that operation? No, hell no, of course not. I haven't forgotten any of that. So there's no love for the mullahs. I hate them with every fiber in my being. My question is this. When you go into a war, this is my only point. When you go into a war against a country the size of Western Europe, with almost 100 million people, that is very diverse, very mountainous. I mean, the terrain, you want to talk about suitable for an insurgency. Iran is tailor-made for a long insurgency campaign. Now, I understand Trump is saying no boots on the ground. Well, then how do you affect regime change? Because you've never in history have you brought down a regime without boots on the ground. You need air power, naval power is key, no question. We're destroying the Iranian military. But if you want to kick the mullahs out and replace them with a new regime, either you provide the boots or the Iranian people will have to provide the boots. And so what no one has thought through, and I know they haven't thought it through, is what comes next. Now, it may all work out well. I hope it does. I pray it does. To be brutally honest with you, I don't want another American dead. I want this thing to be over by tomorrow, complete victory, and there's a new government in power that's pro-American, that will stop menacing its neighbors, that will not pursue a nuclear program, and this thing is over. And I will come out and say, like I did with the Patriot Act, because I initially supported the Patriot Act, and I came out and I said, I was wrong. The Patriot Act to me has turned into a disaster. I initially supported the war in Iraq. I came out and said, I was wrong. I don't have an ego. I don't mind saying I was wrong. So I will come out and say, you know what? Trump was completely right. I was wrong. I underestimated his genius. I don't see a plan how this thing ends. And that's what I'm concerned about. Because, you see, Tom, this is the difference. And this is not a criticism of Israel. I'm just stating a fact. For Bibi Netanyahu and the Israelis, they just want to smash Iran's military and nuclear program and overthrow the mullahs. And that's it. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying from their point of view, legitimately, Iran is the mullahs are an existential threat. So, destroy their military, destroy their nuclear program once and for all, and overthrow these animals. And that's it. Now, if Iran is in flames, if there's millions of refugees, the country starts splitting apart, there's a civil war going on, there's a bloodbath, the whole country begins to disintegrate, Israel doesn't care from their national security point of view. In fact, they may even like it. Yeah, let them kill each other. Great. Let these Islamists slaughter each other. And we're not going to take in any of the refugees. The Israelis won't, because they're smart. They don't take in Muslim refugees. But it will destabilize the region. That's going to affect us. It's going to have refugees pour into Europe. That's going to affect us. And we're going to take in refugees from Iran. We always take in refugees. We've done it after Afghanistan. We did it after Iraq. We did it after Libya. We did it after Syria. So what I'm saying is the blowback is going to hit us. And the American people are going to blame Trump. If the end game is a disaster, if Iran breaks up into pieces and it becomes like Iraq, where the whole thing is just it's anarchy, chaos, they're going to turn around and they're going to blame Trump. And then he's finished in the midterms. And that's the last thing I want. Now, you can disagree with me. I really mean this. Okay, Kuhner, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. But this is what I don't like about Mark Levin. And I want to be, this is the other thing. You're in a feud with Mark Levin. I'm not in a feud with, no, I never attacked the guy. I gave my reasons for why I don't like the end game and I'm skeptical of this war. And I said to him, let's have a debate. Equal time. You give your reasons for, I give my reasons against. Let the people decide. His answer, I'm a woke Reich Nazi. I'm a Nazi. I never called him a Nazi. I didn't call him a name. So he's vilifying me. He's insulting me in a way that I think is unimaginable. And all I'm doing is giving you, I think, are very, rational reasons why I oppose the war. And instead of saying you're wrong and here's why X, Y, and Z, he's calling me the worst smear you can possibly call someone. Now, I want you to understand something. I really mean this. This is so insulting and so offensive. As I said on X last night, I said, I'm done with this guy. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with him. Do you understand that? I did not insult him at all. All he did was insult me nonstop. And America First conservatives like me. And half my family were butchered in the Holocaust. My grandfather who I love dearly, spent 2 years in a Nazi concentration camp. They destroyed his testicles, okay? They tortured him and they destroyed his testicles. The man couldn't properly urinate for the rest of his life. Now my sister in Tucson, Arizona is upset with me. She says I'm giving Mark Levin way too much time. Obviously, she's very offended by what he said about me. She knows our family history and how much we suffered under the Nazis first and then under the communists. So she's obviously, she thinks he's an idiot for what he's calling me, a woke Reich Nazi. I'm literally an anti-Nazi, but anyway, let that go. And she knows how inflammatory and defamatory and insulting it is, but she's basically saying that we have a country to save. And so it's not worth it. Don't waste your breath anymore on this. So, you know what? I'm going to do my sister a favor. There's no point in mentioning this anymore. But no, it shows to me the level of the debate, how low it's fallen in this country. And to the left, I expect this. They're the ones who are giving us cancel culture and censorship. and utter intolerance. They can't tolerate any disagreement, any dissent. But to see it on the so-called right is very dispiriting, very demoralizing. And I think conservatives deserve better. I think MAGA deserves better. And I think America deserves better. But if that's your argument, if all you have is Nazi, 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 because you can't defend your position, well, that pretty much tells me everything I need to know. 617 but let that go. 617-266-6868 is the number. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Angelo?
I'm doing good. Hey, so, your sister's correct. They have nothing else to offer the country but to try to dismantle it. And let's start off by saying that they were drumming up a false narrative for the radical protesters against ICE, and two of them had a horrible experience because you don't fight against ICE. That being said, we know that. They went berserk when those two radical people got killed, but they didn't have to put themselves in harm's way. But they have no problem with 30,000 people getting mowed down by that regime in Iraq and, Iran, I'm sorry. I just got to say that they are treasonous, and we're in it because we have to be. Look what our government is doing. They're supporting that government, and they don't care about our own people. They don't care about 30,000 people that got killed. I mean, it's not right. They're showing who they are. They are treasonous, but we can only do one thing because they won't arrest them and take them out and drag them out with the Marines. We got to do it by the vote of the pen, and the pen already worked in the voting we saw this week, and it's going to work because people are smarter than we're patriots. We want the best for everybody. What I would do is I would stay in the air with our Air Force, and I would have the neighboring countries that are getting attacked by this regime, and I would police it, and I would put into place all the public to put in who they want and support them by air. Have all the other countries in there, Jeff, doing their job to keep peace. And we don't have to put boots on the ground. What I would also do is once the country gets back on its feet, take over the oil fields, get all the money back that Obama poured in there and wasted billions of dollars, get our money back, get the money back for the operation for crippling their government, and get the money to keep our force in the air. And that's what I would do. And I think that's the best thing to do. That being said, can I say something against Hillary because it's so disgusting? Karma's finally hitting her.
Well,
Hillary,
Angelo, before we get to Hillary, look, this is I think now we're still not there yet. So I never want to count my chickens before they're hatched. It's going to take a while, a bit more time to finish off the Ayatollahs militarily. We're there. There's no question we're there. We're almost there, but it's going to take a few more days. Then this is going to be the pivotal part of the war. Okay. This is going to be it. This is where the decisive decision will be made. What do you do when the regime now is barely clinging to power? It's lost its ability for the most part to terrorize its population. What will the Iranian people do? That is the wild card. Right now, they're hunkering down. I don't blame them. Bombs are falling everywhere. But are they going to rise? Are they going to take to the streets? Now, you would assume that after they killed so many, 32,000, and slaughtered them, and you're completely right, Angelo. I haven't seen one leftist, one student activist shed a tear for 32,000 dead, brave Iranians, innocent, unarmed Iranians who were just butchered, slaughtered. The besieged, that's what they're called. They're paramilitary, police. that they have, this theocratic paramilitary police. They're brown shirts. They just came in. These were students, young people protesting on the streets of Tehran. Not one of them had a weapon, not one of them, because remember, unlike us, they don't have a Second Amendment. That's why, our founding fathers were so right and were so wise. If they had a Second Amendment, this would be very different right now in Iran, because the people would be armed, they would be able to defend themselves, and if they were shot at, they would shoot back. And you would see thousands and thousands and thousands of dead Iranian Basij, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps members, security officials. The mullahs would be chased out of Tehran. But let that go. Okay, just let that go. They were unarmed. They were defenseless. By the way, they were very peaceful. They were just simply protesting. And what they were protesting wasn't even initially against the mullahs, just so that we all understand. They're hungry. They're starving. Inflation is destroying them. They can't pay literally for bread and food and butter and coffee and fruits and meats. They can't eat. They can't eat. So they were protesting living conditions. And this is how the Ayatollahs respond? You mow them down? And then, by the way, the most disgusting part was that they were raping women. Because according to Shiite theology, if a woman is not a virgin before she dies, in other words, she's not married or whatever. So if a woman is raped by a man, and, in other words, is not a virgin, and then is killed, they will not go to heaven. You're condemning, according to Shiite theology, you're condemning these women to eternal hell. Okay? So these women were tortured, they were raped, and then they were killed. The others that survived some of the shooting, they're in a hospital, they're riddled with bullets. The Basij went in there, into the hospitals, and finished them off in hospital beds. So the hospitals were flowing with blood. Where was Bill in Sudbury? Where was Chris in Gloucester? Where was Ben in North Andover? They cried for the Palestinians. When it came to Gaza, they didn't stop. Where were all these student left-wing activists? How come they didn't roil the campuses then? How come they weren't out there with their signs and placards and chants and slogans and suddenly and waving the flag of a free Iran? Huh? They had the Palestinian flag, but suddenly they didn't have the old pre-Islamic Republic flag. No, they were silent. What did Elizabeth Warren? Did she ever condemn it? Nothing. Did Hakeem Jeffries condemn it? Nothing. Did Chuck Schumer condemn it? Nothing. Did AOC? Did Bernie? Did Mamdani? Did any of them even say a word? Nothing. Nothing. So that tells you everything you need to know. They're liars and phonies and frauds. They only care if they can bash Israel. They only care if they can use it in their anti-Semitic hatred for Israel and the Jews. Because when the Ayatollahs slaughter their own people or innocent, brave Iranians, they don't lift a finger. Just by the way, they don't care about the victims of communist China. The Uyghurs it's a genocide. A genocide. Millions dead in actual concentration camps. Okay? Real life concentration camps. They don't care. They don't care. So they don't give a damn about human rights. They don't give a damn about democracy. They praise China. They take money from China. They collaborate with China. So, no, I'm sorry. I have to call it the way I see it. Don't lecture me about the Palestinians when you're such blatant, flagrant hypocrites. Now, let me just say one other thing, and then I want to go back to the phone lines. And I want to throw this on the table. Elon, some people did something. Omar. Congress was briefed. The Gang of Eight, as they're called, the Republican leaders in the House, Democrat leaders in the House, the Republican, Democrat leaders in the Senate, okay, were all briefed before the attacks began that Operation Epic Fury was a go, and it was going to start basically late Friday night our time. It was Saturday Iranian time, but, basically, late Friday night our time, Saturday Iranian time. So Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, they tell their people, their fellow Democrats, members of Congress, Trump is now going to hammer Iran with the Israelis. Ilhan Omar finds out, and she goes on social media, and she literally warns the Ayatollahs that the operation has been approved, that a military campaign is about to begin. Get ready. The Americans and the Israelis are coming. Now, they struck so quickly and so powerfully and so efficiently that it ended up making little to no difference. But holy mackerel. You tip off the enemy that we're about to attack? And you're still a member of Congress? I mean, I can keep going. I'm going to keep going. Rashida Tlaib is siding with the Iranian Ayatollahs. By the way, death to Israel. She chants death to Israel. She chants death to America. Mamdani is openly siding with the Ayatollahs. Now, I'm sorry. Facts are facts are facts. Now, you tell me, where's the media? Where are the Republicans? Nowhere. Now, I'm telling you as an historian, you take this to the bank. In any other era in American history, I don't care. If this, even after 9/11, this would have been, your career is over. It's over. Okay, never mind during the Cold War or World War II or World War I or whatever, hundreds and hundreds of years. This would have been considered so seditious, so unpatriotic, such a deep and profound betrayal, so treasonous. There would be a massive public outcry like you wouldn't believe. Nothing. I'm telling you, nothing. In fact, they're going to keep continuing. They love Ilhan Omar. She's the face of the party. Mamdani is the face of the party. Rashida Tlaib is the face of the party. And by the way, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Mamdani now are all joining forces. They have convinced AOC not to primary Schumer. This is what I'm reading now. For the New York Senate seat, they want her to run for president. They think she can win in 2028. That they have enough militants on the ground, that they've taken over enough of the Democratic Party, that they can wage an insurgency campaign and knock off Gavin. Gavin Newsom is now the establishment in the Democratic Party. If you can believe this. They think they have enough now that they can defeat the establishment. Either defeat Kamala or defeat Newsom, and that she will ride and get the Democratic ticket and be their standard bearer in 2028. A communist. A communist. Okay, a member of the Socialist Democrats of America. Okay, which is what Mamdani is from, and that's essentially it's a communist party. This is what I mean when I say we cannot afford the Democrats to come back to power, because they will politically, economically, culturally, socially slit Uncle Sam's throat. They will slit our throat from ear to ear. You're going to get Biden all over again. And maybe, if it's possible, even worse. Scott in Newton. Thanks for holding, Scott, and welcome.
Hello, how you doing,
I'm doing great. Go ahead, Scott.
My son went to Washington, D.C. Over this week, and he was at a meeting, a Congress meeting, or just to show him how, government works. And a Marine stood up in full uniform, and he was opposing fighting for Israel. A senator and another guy, the security, grabbed him, threw him down the ground, put a handcuff on him, then they stood him back up, and he was holding on to a door. They broke his arm right in front of, my son and his other two friends. They were all like 16 years old.
Yeah, Scott. No, I saw that. I read the story and I saw the video. It was a Marine. I believe he's a veteran, a Marine veteran, who showed up in full uniform. He is a candidate for the Green Party in North Carolina for the U.S. Senate. His name is Brian McGinnis. And there was a hearing of the Senate Armed Services Committee. He showed up. By the way, he's tied to Code Pink. Okay, so he's tied to that. It's a communist anti-war group. And he showed up in full uniform, and he started yelling, shouting, and screaming. He was disrupting the hearing illegally. It's illegal. And he was saying that this war is being fought for Israel, and that he doesn't want American soldiers to die for Israel. And why is the committee not telling everybody that this war is being waged on behalf of Israel? And so 3 Capitol Hill police officers tried to remove him. He fought back. He was unhinged. Okay, Brian McGinnis, the Marine. He fought back. He was literally fighting back. Chairs are flying. People are all standing up. They're all worried. The hearing now has been completely interrupted. You've got basically a brawl breaking out because, he's a Marine. He's a big, tough guy. And 3 cops are trying to wrestle him and contain him and, get him to leave. And then Senator Tim Sheehy, a Republican from Montana, who is a former Navy SEAL, also big guy, obviously well-trained, incredibly, I've never seen this, he rushes and helps the Capitol police officers. And so now there's 4 of them. And they're still trying to get him out. And if you can picture a door, the door is open. He's kind of like sideways. The Marine is like sideways. They're lifting him off the ground, and they're trying to pull him out. One's grabbing a leg, the other one's grabbing the other leg, one's grabbing a shoulder. And then this Marine puts his arm on the door. And it's like, no, this is all for Israel. No, you're all lying. It's on behalf of Israel. Why won't you say this? And he was holding on to the door so hard, and they were trying to pull him out with such strength that the whole room heard, and people were like aghast. You could hear his arm being broken. His arm was broken. And then they finally, after his arm breaks, they finally pull the guy out. Now, Scott, what they showed afterwards, I saw the following video as well. So now he's, it's the Senate Hart Building. That's where it took place. So now you have Capitol Police. They're waiting now for an ambulance to come because the guy's got a broken arm. And, of course, they're going to put him under arrest. It was almost funny. I mean, it's sad, but it's a bit funny. Either you laugh or you cry. The Marine is sitting in a chair in his uniform, and his left arm is just dangling. I mean, it's just dangling because it's broken. And he's like, his head is back. He's sitting, and he's like, ugh. Like, if you can imagine, he's about to pass out from the pain. But even as he's about to pass out from the pain, he's going on saying, this is Israel's war. We're doing this for Israel. Stop the war. Why are we dying for Israel? And I'm like, dude, man, you got a broken arm. I mean, you could tell the guy's a tough Marine. I'm like, buddy, if that was me with a broken arm, I'd be like, get an ambulance for God's sake. I'm in pain. This is killing me. Yeah, Mike is saying you already saw me with the ribs. No, look, the Marine was completely in the wrong. I hate to say this. You don't dress up in a uniform to try to make a political point and engage in a political stunt because he's running for office. And then to illegally, disrupt a hearing. And then, he's charged now with assaulting police officers, with resisting arrest, with obstruction of a meeting. He's lucky now if he doesn't go to jail. Okay, let me throw this very quick log on the fire. What do you make of that incident yesterday on Capitol Hill? Everybody's talking about it. I did want to talk about it, so I'm happy that we had a Scott Newton raised it, before I could even, raise it myself. But here you had a Marine, decorated, came with all his medals and everything in his uniform, and he interrupts the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing, yelling, shouting, screaming. Basically, his message was, this is a war on behalf of Israel, for Israel, to the benefit of Israel, and that he says that Americans should not be dying for Israel. And he's yelling, shouting, screaming. He clearly disrupted the meeting. He was told to leave. He refused to leave. It took 3 Capitol Hill police officers to try to remove him. He was resisting them. It got into a fight. You should see the video. I mean, there's, chairs flying. Everybody's getting up. They're like, oh my God, what's going on here? And they're really having a tough time removing this Marine because he's one tough son of a gun. He's a Marine, man. You don't mess with these guys. And so Senator Tim Sheehy, Montana Republican, former Navy SEAL, another tough guy. You don't mess with the Navy SEALs either. Another tough son of a gun. He rushes over in his suit. He's in the blue suit. You can see him in the blue suit. And he's helping the Capitol police officers remove the Marine. And so you got 4 of them, and it's like a tussle going on. And, this stubborn Marine then puts his arm, almost like his elbow, the point of his elbow, on the door. And it's like, no, you're not getting me out of here. And they're yanking him and yanking him and yanking him. And then eventually you just hear, as I said, you hear a bone break. And there's like a gasp. You're like, oh my, everyone's like shocked. And of course now this Marine is like, in pain. And that's when they finally yank him out. So, his arm was broken. Now, obviously, now the Marine is in the hospital. They've treated him. He's got a broken arm. Apparently now he's been charged 3 counts of obstructing an official proceeding on Capitol Hill, 3 counts of assaulting police officers, 3 counts of resisting arrest. So they're going to throw the book at this guy. Sheehy is now being praised as a hero, saying, he helped the Capitol Police out. That's what Navy SEALs do. Once a Navy SEAL, always a Navy SEAL. Now, you may disagree with me. I'm just giving you my brutally honest opinion. Look, the Marine has earned the right to say his piece. Okay? Whatever he believes, that's his right. He fought for our country. He put his life on the line for our country. If he's against this war, and for whatever reasons he's against this war, he has the right to express himself and to his opinion. He doesn't have the right to interrupt a committee in Congress. He doesn't have the right to disrupt the Armed Services Committee. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, I believe it's against the rules of the Marine Corps, correct me if I'm wrong, to use your uniform, to be dressed in full uniform, and then make a political statement or try to advocate for a political cause. To me, that's the misuse of wearing your uniform. And so I believe he was wrong on that count as well. Never mind, look, you're interrupting an official proceeding of Congress. And now you're fighting with the police? I mean, that's assaulting an officer. That's resisting arrest. I mean, come on. That's shameful. But I got to say this, I'm sorry, but I got to be fair. I don't know if I'm comfortable with a senator rushing in and taking out a Marine and helping to break the guy's arm. I mean, I know the Marine is at fault. He's the one holding the door. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like looking at this and I'm like, I don't know if I want let me put it this way. The image of a decorated Marine decrying the war and then a former Navy SEAL and a U.S. Senator helping to drag him out, and in the process, his arm gets broken. When I saw that, I'm like, I don't like where this is going. I don't like it. Because now it's vet versus vet, Sheehy versus this guy, Brian McGinnis, Navy SEAL versus Marine. Arms are being broken. We're physically now fighting with each other. And do we really want the precedent of senators getting physically involved or in physical alterations? Physical altercations with, protesters. Now, I understand he was resisting arrest. I understand he was fighting with the Capitol Hill police officers. I understand that the three of them were having a very hard time trying to subdue him. I get it. He was just trying to be a good Samaritan and help the police. I get all that. But I'm looking at this, and how much money do we spend on security on Capitol Hill? So if 3 can't take him out, get 4, get 5, get 6. Why should a senator have to be forced to do this? And was it wise on the part of the senator to do it? I don't like the precedent of this. I think it diminishes the Senate. I think it coarsens the Senate. And I don't want to turn senators now into cage fighters. So I'm looking at this, and on the one hand, I'm impressed with Sheehy's bravery and his toughness. Because honestly, I'm being brutal. He was tougher than the 3 Capitol Hill police officers. I mean, just physically, he's bigger, stronger. He's in better shape. And man, when he came, they started to manhandle that Marine. In other words, this guy's still in great shape. But do we really want this? Where now we're going to have, senators now, fighting with protesters and jostling and wrestling and, breaking arms and throwing them out? Again, I look at this and I say, look how badly divided this country is. And now more violence. Ken in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Ken.
Seems like we're drinking from a fire hose, all the news we have these days. Holy smokes.
Never a dull moment, huh, Ken?
To say the least. All right, so how did we get here? Because I don't think we're taking sides on the conservative of, America first, no foreign wars, versus, we've got a big problem, we've got to handle it. People have different approaches. So how did we get here? I don't think we're thinking of, to the extent of, I think W was a worse president than Clinton. There was one thing he said 20-plus years ago that was absolutely true. We were dealing with an axis of evil. Now, he happened to call out at that time Iran, Russia, and North Korea. Well, North Korea really was an adjunct of China. We just we didn't see China as quite the enemy then as we do now since they've got Xi. But let's be serious. Yes, there's an axis of evil, and their senior members, they are Russia, China, Iran, and there are junior members. North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. Oh, gee, what happened, Jeff, to Venezuela? Yeah, that's the beginning, really, the recent story here. Because I think what we have is a very special president that's unlike anything we're ever going to have, and we need to take advantage of it. So he saw the picture and says, you know what? this is just going to go on forever, way past the time I'm president. We need to start. So, he negotiated with Russia as best he could to pull out of Ukraine. Well, that was one intransigent axis of evil. And then he went on to Venezuela, and they weren't listening to him, and, well, he did what he had to do. Well, that's good. We knocked out one of the axis, a junior member, and that's creating problems for who? Oh, Russia, India, all the other axes of evil. And then, okay, let's move on to the next one, the big one, or one of the big ones. Iran, who has always been our enemy for the last 47 years. Gee, they yell, death to America, death to Israel. Gee, do you think they mean that? Yeah. And you try to knock sense of them last June by taking out much of their capacity for a nuclear weapon. And did they get the message? No. Yeah, so I'm listening to the Witkoff interview yesterday. Well, yeah, he described it like, yeah, that probably is exactly what happened. And, okay, you put yourself in the president's shoes. It's like they probably can't produce 11 nuclear weapons. But am I going to take the chance? Yeah, what's history going to think of me if I ignored that threat? So they came up with a great plan, which is what they had to do, given the circumstances. This is a cost-benefit analysis deal. And the cost of letting things continue as they were was way too high compared to the benefit of dealing with reality. And the reality right now is the mullahs have to go. And whatever replaces them has to be friendly to us, friendly to Israel, friendly to their neighbors. Why? Weren't they? Until last Saturday, they weren't friendly with them because they're a bunch of Islamic punks. And the punks got their comeuppance. And it was about time. And now we just see it play out. Now, is it going to turn out just the way we'd like to see? We don't have any boats. I certainly hope. No, I don't want any boats. But we're hearing about the Kurds, aren't we? Yeah, there's an alliance between the northern Iraq Kurds and the northern Iran Kurds, who tended to be warring with each other, but now they're coming together. Well, something may play out good here. And the bottom line, remember, what we want is no more of this punk terrorism crap going all over the world, including threatening the president twice with his life. That's over. I so thank the president and all his administration and all they've done this past week. I wish the best for them. Thank you.
Well, Ken, you made a lot of points, obviously, and thank you very much for that call. One of the things we haven't really discussed, and you just mentioned, and I think it's a very important point, is Trump was asked, he gave multiple reasons for why he's doing this: destroy their ballistic missile capabilities, finally wipe out their nuclear program once and for all, end the threat that they pose to their neighbors and funding terrorism all around the world. So, he gave, many reasons. But he also said something else. He said that the Ayatollah, the one that just got killed, Khamenei, that he tried to kill Trump or assassinate Trump twice. And so Trump said, I got him before he got me, or before he could get me. Now, I thought that was very fascinating, because Trump is also saying, well, they were trying to eliminate me, so I eliminated them. And Hegseth, in one of his speeches, said, basically, it was revenge or retribution, is the way he put it. They tried to assassinate our president, and you know what? We now paid him back. And now their guy is dead, our guy is still alive. Now, what I really want to know is, and I'm not saying the president is lying or Hegseth is lying, I'm not. But I think we, the American people, deserve an answer on this. Because I want transparency. I want to know, what do they know that we don't know? Where is the evidence? And the reason why I'm asking this, where is the evidence that the Ayatollah and the Iranian leadership was directly responsible for plotting not one, but 2 assassination attempts on the President of the United States. And in particular, this is why I'm raising this, was Butler an Iranian job? What happened in Butler, is that what they're referring to when they say 2 assassination attempts? Like, to be honest, what 2 assassination attempts? Are there 2 that we haven't been told? Or are you talking about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, where, he came within a millimeter of losing his life? Or the follow-up one, the one at the golf course, where, he shot at him in the golf course, and thank the Lord, the Secret Service managed to stop him and arrest him. So were the Iranians behind those 2 assassination attempts? Because I'm not aware, I'm not saying the president is lying. What I'm trying to say is my understanding of everything I've read about Butler was there was compromise within the FBI, the Secret Service was compromised, and that the shooter was a radical leftist. Now, I never heard that the Iranians were behind this operation. Were they? Is that what they're saying? Could you clarify this? Which 2 assassination attempts, and in particular, was Butler one of those? And if that is the case, please, can you show me the evidence? Now, why? Because this changes, again, everything. To attempt to kill the President of the United States is an international war crime. And if we have the evidence that the Ayatollah specifically ordered a hit on Trump via Butler, I would take this right away to the American people. I would take it to the United Nations. I would say, look, I want an international coalition behind us on this war in Iran. And I would go to the American people and, literally say, look, they tried to have me, they tried to blow my brains out in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, that's a declaration of war. I don't know what else to tell you. They wanted me dead. And they came within a millimeter of pulling it off. You've got 80, the country would rally around Trump. He would get an immediate declaration of war. So what I'm trying to say is, if they really did try an assassination attempt, please declassify that material. Show us the evidence. Because I think the American people deserve to know. 617-266-6868 is the number. Brooks in Florida. Thanks for holding, Brooks, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning.
Hi, Brooks.
Okay, so to answer your question, I think one of the assassination attempts that occurred was, don't quote me on this, I think it was 2022, possibly 2023, after they stole the election. Trump was playing golf. What happens, Jeff? Buzzy goes in the air. They look up. It's a drone, maybe from Iran. That story kind of went puff in the air. We never really got to the bottom of that. But I think that might be something that comes to light. We'll see. Jeff, the thing is that Trump is, after SCOTUS defrauded him on the tariffs, something changed with Trump. He's coming out like Rocky Balboa. He's swinging. There's a golden light surrounding him right now. And, talking about kind of like turning a negative into a positive, he immediately starts going into how, okay, the tariffs, you guys want to play around with me on this? I have a solution. I've already had it in place. He immediately puts that into action. So, there's something happening with him. God is giving him a really good, push of warm air on his American bald eagle wings. You can feel it. The Iranians are performing, the YMCA dance. So isn't New York. So isn't L.A. There's something happening. It's almost, very cosmic. I don't think boots are going to go on the ground. Larry from Now Arkansas kind of talked about a little bit about this yesterday, and he said something very, very important. Nation building is different from regime change. If Trump, is able to broker and negotiate something with the Kurds, we'll see what takes place with that. But it's going to be negotiators on the ground, similar to the Red Cross. Think of it like a crime scene. The police are going to make sure that the crime scene is now safe for the detectives to come in. So I don't think we're going to have soldiers on the ground. I mean, they'll be able to defend whatever group we have that's going to represent the Iranian people in a fair capacity. I think that the news today, for example, they have this stadium, okay? It's a soccer stadium or something. It holds 12,000 people. The Israelis struck it, and they're saying that 3,000 soldiers are dead just from that strike alone. So they're getting a lot of, epic hits that we haven't had a naval strike like how we sunk their Navy ships sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now. We haven't had anything like that, and you stated this in 50 years. So there is so much positive things happening. In regards to Witkoff and claiming that the uranium is there, they're probably going to discover this within the first strike when we took out in June when we used the ballistic armament that we did. And we took out their entire nuclear program. So here's my gut on this. My visceral feeling is that I don't think Trump and his administrators are going to put things out there that the naysayers, that the lefties are going to immediately fact check and claim as false. Let me put it this way. When Colin Powell, was asked to state that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, he was very uncomfortable about doing that. It was a huge media hit. It was a complete failure. I don't think Trump and his team is going to fall into that trap. We'll see, Jeff. We'll see. But I guess the point is that there's so much positive things happening with the takedown of these mullahs. They've been the bully of the entire Middle East for 47, 49, call it 50 years. This is epic. This is incredible. This is
we're watching history. No, look, Brooks, this is you're completely right. Look, this is, first of all, an immaculate military campaign that has been so well planned and so far, knock on wood, so well executed. This is going to be studied for decades to come. I think there's no question. There's no question. And look, just to give you just a side piece, the killing of the bombing and eventually, the killing of the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. It's now coming out. I don't know if you've been reading some of these accounts. It is fascinating. The expression, truth is stranger or whatever, more interesting than fiction. This reads like a Jean le Carré novel or a Tom Clancy novel. So apparently Mossad had hacked the street cameras in downtown Tehran right around the presidential palace and, the key buildings that the supreme leader and other top leaders of the Iranian regime would go and would walk and would hang around. And this was going on for years. And so what they did was they just kept studying the video footage. And after a while, they began to say, oh, look. Here's the Ayatollah. Now, when does he come again? Oh, look at this. Every 3 days or every 4 days or whatever. And he goes from this street to this sidewalk, up these stairs, into this side door. Oh, follow into that room. Now, it took years to do this. And I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of Israeli intelligence analysts combing. I'm talking, tens and tens of thousands of hours of video footage and looking for patterns and looking for, and that's how they were able to finally get him. It's like Sherlock Holmes, but over many years. And you read this and you go, first of all, the technology, the brilliance, the patience, how painstaking this was. I mean, I got to tip my hat off. Really, to Mossad, to the intelligence service, you just got to tip your hat off. You look at, it's like what happened. What was it when they blew up all the, they decimated Hezbollah's leadership when they blew up all of their phones because they went to literally to the factory in Taiwan and put in the chips and the detonators in the factory. So when they ordered it, it was already built in, and they just waited for years until the time was right, and then boom. They sent out one text, everybody got the text, and bang. That's how they basically decapitated Hezbollah's leadership in Lebanon. So what I'm saying is, you look at this and you say, you just have to marvel. The Israelis and, of course, us, we are leagues above the Iranians. And we're now starting to show, in terms of our military technology, we are now a level above China and Russia. This is embarrassing to the Chinese and the Russians. Because the Iranians, look, this was for them I don't think people realize how much money the Iranians have invested in their ballistic missiles, in their air defenses, in their navy, in their stockpiles. By the way, and building these massive underground bunkers. That's what's killing them now, is they have all these huge, which they thought was safe, and full of these ballistic missiles. So they figured, well, no, they've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of ballistic missiles. So they go, well, that's our insurance policy. America, Israel, anybody touches us, we'll bully our neighbors, we'll menace our neighbors. But more than that, you attack us, we are going to rain missiles on you. And now we've got these bunker busters, and we're just destroying one underground bunker after another, and it is obliterating their entire ballistic missile stockpile. I mean, and by the way, and they had to starve their population to build this up. It was a generational investment. Any money they had, they threw into the military, into their technology. They were buying stuff from the Chinese and the Russians, which they were told was state of the art, which maybe, I guess, at the time it was. But then we come along and our stuff blows their stuff out of the water. So you're completely right, Brooks. Look, to me, the question is not the military campaign. Okay, it's incredible. To me, it's what you were talking about at the beginning. Because I don't know. I like the idea of arming the Kurds. I think that's very good. You want good boots on the ground. The Kurds are ferocious fighters, excellent warriors. The problem is already you're getting a lot of blowback from Persians because the Kurds are non-Persians. So within the opposition in Iran, the Persian opposition says, no, you're not going to harm the Kurds. What are you talking about? We're going to have non-Persians, a minority, run a country like Persia? Remember, the Persians are very proud, very nationalistic, very patriotic. So already, they have to, how do we do this? We got to bridge it with the Kurds and the Persians and try to put together this, sweeping counterinsurgency team or resistance movement. So there's the problem is in Poland, we had Lech Walesa. Okay. I can give you in other words, in other places, there was one leader that generally the consensus among the opposition was, that's our person. That's our guy. We don't have that in Iran. We were hoping it was the Crown Prince. I like him. I would vote for him. But, I'm not Iranian. Even in the opposition, they have bad memories of the Shah. They don't want to return for the monarchy. There's a lot of resistance. He's seen as an American puppet. The Persians don't want an American puppet. And I think the other thing that Americans have to understand is Persia, the Iranians, have never had a democracy. Ever. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. Most of their history has been a monarchy. Okay, and then you had these animals, these these Islamist animals come to power. So it's, this idea that now we're going to have this democracy just flower in Iran. I'm like, we're being very unrealistic. What the Iranians want is a stable government that is not going to repress its people and be so brutal and medieval and primitive, embarking on a nuclear program that could lead to a nuclear war down the road and has turned their country into a pariah. So I think the most reasonable, if we're going to be reasonable, is there's going to be some kind of a strong man that's going to emerge. But that's okay. Most countries around the world are run by, dictatorships. But will it be a reasonable dictatorship, a moderate dictatorship, a semi-competent dictatorship, a dictatorship where they're not oppressing every aspect of your life, where, if you don't wear a hijab, you're going to get shot in the face, or, where you're run by these mullahs and these clerics that, are literally trying to force your society to live in the 7th century. So I think what we have to understand is the Persians themselves are going to have to decide. And right now, they haven't decided. There's no unity among in the opposition. And I think now it's a race against the clock. And so I know for a fact that the CIA now is desperately trying to arm groups and get them to agree and come together. The problem is there's a lot of suspicion, a lot of paranoia. They don't trust each other. And remember, they've been brutalized for 50 years. So there's a lot of fear. And so that's why I've always worried about the end game. And look, again, I don't want to repeat myself, Brooks, but this is so key. Israel and our interests are different. They're similar, but they're different. Israel ultimately, look, it's like a vase. All they want to do is break it. It's not a criticism. I'm just stating a fact. Iran, the regime, is an existential threat. Topple them, depose them, take away their nuclear program, set back their ballistic missiles, neuter, tear the guts out of them. Hey, after that, hey, what do we care? Hell, they want to fight among themselves. The country starts to fall apart. There's a vacuum. There's anarchy, maybe even a civil war. Who cares? That's among them. Let the Islamists slaughter each other. It's even better for us. I get it. From their point of view, I get it. We're different. As Colin Powell famously said, once you break it, you own it. You see, we have a different... Us is you break the vase, you got to replace it with a new vase. And that's why Trump said openly, that's one of the things I really admire about him. There's no filter with him. He just tells you, it's like, well, why do you need to be in the cabinet? He tells you everything anyway. And so he openly said, he goes, look, I've told my people, yeah, the military operation is going splendid. I love it. But if we end up with somebody, and we may, he said the word may, somebody who's in some ways just as bad as the mullahs. Well, he goes, for me, that's the worst case scenario. Like, I don't want this to happen. And that's why privately he said, I've taken the biggest risk of my entire political career. Trump is a gambler by nature. It's why he's a very successful man. But the thing about gamblers is sometimes they fail. Now, what's great about Trump is he bounces back. He's been bankrupt several times, but he always comes back. He's got that pluck, that initiative, that ambition, that, as you mentioned, Rocky Balboa, that stick-to-itiveness. But this is high risk and potentially very high reward. But it could also turn into a disaster. Not the military part. It's the post-military. Trump wants a vase that will replace the broken vase. Now, let me tell you what may happen. Okay, and General Dan Cain has prepared Trump for this. That's why Trump mentioned the worst case scenario, because the military has to give you the worst case scenario. Here is the worst case scenario. I think there's even a worst case scenario than that, but let me give you what they said is a worst case scenario. The worst case scenario, and it may come to this, that you get a military strongman from the IRGC, from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. You get a real military tough guy. He can keep everybody in line. You won't have the country disintegrate. You won't have the regime dissolve or the government dissolve. He will ensure stability. But he will agree, no nuclear program ever, no more ballistic missiles ever, and we will not fund a single terrorist. In other words, leave us alone. I will run Iran with an iron fist. But you're never going to threaten anyone else in the region or the United States or anybody ever again. Okay? In other words, give me a free hand inside. I won't bother you guys on the outside. Now, that's the worst case scenario. And that, according to General Kane and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that could happen. And that's why Trump said, I don't want that to happen. So that's why what I'm trying to, it's not I'm trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just explaining to everybody. These are literally, this is what Rubio and Hegseth and Trump and J.D. Vance and General Kane and the Joint Chiefs, that's what they're discussing as you and I are speaking now. The war is going great, better than expected. The question now is handing off the baton. What comes after the mullahs? And that's everything. Not for Israel. After that, Israel's out. Israel doesn't care. But for us, because I want you to just think about this. Okay? To me, this is the worst case scenario. It's not this. It's Iraq. The mullahs are gone. They're dissolved, they're crumbled, they're finished, they've collapsed. But no one really takes power. And now you've got street fighting in Tehran. You've got warlords. You've got factions. The country begins to break apart slowly. Civil war. The Kurds are arming to protect themselves. The Azeris are arming to protect themselves. The Persians are fighting among themselves. Different factions now ally with different groups. You've got refugees now by the millions pouring across the region, pouring across borders, pouring across Europe. The outcry is going to be for us to take some of them in. Iran's oil is gone because you can't pump oil. There's no stability. There's anarchy. The government, the police basically evaporate. That's the worst, to me, the worst case scenario. If that happens, I'm not saying it will, but you have to, it's war. You have to plan for everything. If that happens, I'm telling you, Trump's presidency is in big trouble. He's going to get destroyed in the midterms. Because I know the American people. They're going to look at that, look at those images. It's going to do to Trump what Iraq did to Bush. So I know the arguments about nation building. I know the arguments about no boots on the ground. Trump's going to avoid those kinds of mistakes. I get it. But if the country fragments and splinters apart, and you see the images on TV, the American people are going to say, we blame you. That's why another reason why I'm urging him to eventually go to Congress. Because let members of Congress vote. Let them be held accountable. Now, I get it. If it all goes well, he gets all the credit. But if things go bad, he's going to get all the blame. So, Brooks, I'm just telling you, that's the situation. That's why you can cut the tension with a knife. When you're, in the country, but especially within the Trump administration. This is what they've said. It is the biggest gamble of Trump's entire political career. And he knows it. Now, so far, it's going brilliantly. Knock on wood. I'm telling you, the absolute inflection point, the watershed, is when the war is over, God willing, and we win. what happens after? What happens to the regime? And if it's replaced, is it replaced? And by whom? I know people say it's up to the Iranian people, of course, but that's a hope. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Jim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Jim?
I've been better, but I'm doing. Just a couple points here I want to mention. Number one, Cold War. All right, since World War II, the biggest conflict, the biggest problem geopolitically in the modern era, right? We tried so many things to bring down Russia. They did it to us. We did it to them. Proxy wars, what have you. So what ended the Cold War? The biggest problem we've ever had. Literally us doing nothing. I forget his advisor, senior's advisor, went to him and said, "Oh my God, they took down the Berlin Wall. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? The people don't want that government. What do we do?" Bush, the best move he ever made, probably one of the best moves of foreign policy was, he said, "We do nothing." And what happened? That was it. That was over. And we had a chance where we screwed up after that. Of course, NATO more, blah, 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 and go on how we could have had them as an ally and not as an enemy. Anyways, if we look at that example, we just had, a 30% maybe that approved of that government in Iran. I was a low approval rate, right? And they just had a protest. They just had a lot of people killed. It was a really good potential to bring that down. That wasn't the end of it. So what do we do? Instead of letting something like that naturally happen again, or even if we want, influence over there, we have the capabilities to do that, to, influence that. What do? We end up going there, blowing up everything, carpet bombing things. I'm exaggerating, but we're not there yet. But we're killing civilians. We're killing these people. And what do you think that's going to do to the Persian people? The people that at one point were like anti-Iran and anti-this, now they're going to be like, well, you know what? You're the enemy now. So what do? We just radicalized more people over there. We could have done nothing. So now we have this whole dilemma. Like you said, break it, you got to fix it. What comes after? Well, if you look at what comes after every single damn war we've ever had, it's been worse, whether it's ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about immigration. We thought we had an immigration problem then. You want to see a new Iran? Look at Europe next, because they're going to go to Europe. You're going to see the new jihad in Europe. You're going to, almost 100 million people. This isn't this isn't Venezuela. Now, what we do, I look at our military like a Rolls Royce. We're the finest creation, right? We can do amazing strategic things within, a short period of time. But we're not built, nor do we have the desire for a long, prolonged attempt, and that's what we're doing. We don't have the money. We're trillions in deficit. We don't have the appetite. No one really wants that. I mean, whether you're on the right or left, no one wants boots to the ground. But no one wants boots to the ground. No one wants this to go worse than it is. But to Iran, this is existential, and now the people are going to be on board. So now you just created that. So you created them realizing this is existential. This is life or death. They're willing to literally kill 90% of their population. We're not. Not even one. We have 3 Marines die, and which is terrible, and we're already freaking out. This is not good. Now, I want to see MAGA win. But what this is going to do, you're going to create radicals on the left, socialists, and you're going to create anti-Semites on the right, and you see that already. It's not going down a good road. I don't want to see the midterms completely, utterly collapse, but this is a great way to do it. And,
Well, Jim, I saw a video. Now, there are many videos. I'm not going to overdo this one video. And remember, in war, truth is always the first casualty. So we have to understand there's a lot of propaganda. A lot of people have different agendas. But this seemed to me authentic, seemed to me real. And it was a person from Tehran, an Iranian, who sent out a video. And he stressed, it was a guy, a man, maybe 20, 21, 22. He seemed quite young to me. And said, we hate the mullahs. We hate the mullahs. We want him to fall. I was part of the protest. They didn't manage to kill me, but a lot of my friends were killed. We are dying to overthrow the mullahs. The problem now is that there are so many bombs and missiles, not just hitting the capital, but hitting different parts of the country, that we're starting to feel like our country is under attack. Not the regime is under attack, but our country is under attack. And what's starting to happen is we are starting to rally to our nation. So in other words, their patriotism, their nationalism is kicking in. They're not saying we're rallying to the mullahs. We hate them. But now we feel like you're bombing our country. And when I saw that, I'm like, ugh. I'm like, no. I was, look, you know my position on the war, but I'm just saying what I want is for them to rise up against the mullahs. But now they hated the mullahs, but now it's like the war and the bombing, not driving them towards the mullahs, but driving them to defend Iran or their homeland. So they're starting to resent us and Israel for dropping the bombs. Because, there is what's called collateral damage. Civilians are dying. It's not the intent, of course. They don't want to kill civilians. But the fact of the matter is no bomb is that precise. And so you do see a lot of civilian carnage. And so that's a problem. See, it's another reason why you want this thing to end quick. It's another reason why Trump wants this to end quick. Minimize civilian casualties. So you're right, Jim. This is what I'm saying. So look, the thing that I have found most dispiriting so far, it's all militarily, it's flawless. I'm not seeing people on the streets. Now, yes, the bombs are flying. I get it. But I'm not seeing them out for even 15 minutes. I'm not. Now, the other thing is this, Jim, very quick. In a country, this is just a fact. History has shown this over and over again. There are very few people that can really, truly lead a movement to overthrow a government. There are many people who will follow. But I'm talking about people who are willing to risk their necks, lead a revolution or lead an opposition movement and say, I'm willing to die. I'm going to risk it all, even my life. It's a very small percentage. I'm starting to worry that those 32, 35, 36, whatever, thousand that the Ayatollahs killed a month ago, was that the cream of the crop? I'm sorry, I'm worried. Did they kill the best of the leadership of the opposition? Okay, there's now an issue regarding whether this Iran war is going to impact our oil supply. Very quickly, President Trump now is being very aggressive, very proactive. He now is ordering the U.S. Navy to escort container ships, tankers, through the Strait of Hormuz. If you're asking yourself, well, Jeff, why so much of a priority has been put on taking out the Iranian Navy? I know they're hitting their, missile launchers and their missile capabilities, obviously, and their nuclear program or what's left of their nuclear program. But why this almost obsession with knocking out ship after ship, warship after warship, sinking everything to the bottom of the ocean? They want to prevent the mullahs from being able to block the Strait of Hormuz. That's where 20% of the world's oil, petroleum, the world supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz every single day. You block that off, gas, the price of gas on the oil global market is going to skyrocket. So Trump wants to cut them off at the pass by so degrading and destroying their Navy that they can't block, the Strait of Hormuz, nor can they project power, nor can they really go after our warships and our aircraft carriers. So we have now pretty much decimated Iran's Navy. This broke maybe a couple of hours ago. Their top naval ship has now been sunk. So much of their Navy now is in tatters. They believe they can finish off the Air Force and the Navy within the next 48 to 72 hours. And with Trump now announcing that the Strait of Hormuz will be open and it will be protected by American ships and American naval power, so that the oil from the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia in particular, much of that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, even with this, and with Trump taking some very smart, proactive steps, here, I'm just reading an email from a friend of mine. Jeff, yesterday, gas was at $2.89 a gallon. I went this morning. It's already at $3.09. So it went up 20 cents in less than 24 hours. So I've noticed gas prices are starting to edge upwards. Now, it's not going to be that big of an issue if this war ends quick. But if it goes on week after week after week after week, if it's more of an open-ended, drawn-out war for whatever reason, then yes, you will see oil go up. You'll see the price at the pump go up. It may go up considerably, maybe up to maybe $4 a gallon, whatever, $4.50 a gallon. We'll see. And that would hurt. That would hurt consumers. It would undermine one of Trump's central promises, which is low gas prices, and he doesn't want that to happen. It would cause inflation to rise as well. If gas goes up and energy goes up, everything ends up going up. And it would be terrible for the midterms. So it's another reason why Trump wants this to be a lightning war. That's why they're pounding Iran, hitting them now hard and heavy, furious, and they're not stopping. If anything, what I'm reading is they're now going to take it even a phase higher. So they're going to even intensify now that they've established real air superiority bordering on air dominance, where now our planes cannot be harassed at all. They can come in with some of these other more cumbersome planes that are, could be shot out of the sky. But now with the air defenses demolished and Iran's air force wiped out, and those are the ones that carry the big payloads, like a lot of bombs. So that's going to be the next phase. And I mean, then they're going to really pulverize military bases, the Iranian army, the Iranian military infrastructure. They're going to try to break the back of the Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Basij, their paramilitary strike force that has been intimidating the population for 40-some years. Basically, they're brown shirts. So that's why, they're pushing and pushing and pushing, because the quicker this war ends decisively, it's going to minimize the impact on the economy and the big thing on oil. 617-266-6868. Charlotte in Boston. Thanks for holding, Charlotte, and welcome.
Hi there, Jeff. You and my morning coffee. How perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte.
I know you've got a busy phone. Two quick things. Regarding the midterms, I want everyone, please remind everybody, every opportunity you have, when you think Democrat, think IRS. 16,000 new agents. Do you remember this, Jeff?
Yes.
That's what they'll do. If the Democrats get it, that's the way they want to cripple, finally, the us working people and the middle class. Cross every T, dot every I, because the IRS agents will be there. The other thing is, you want Trump or the administration to show proof about Iran's nuclear bombs. I don't think they can, because that might reveal the asset that told them about this, the asset in Iran.
Oh, you mean like what they call sources and methods, correct?
So if they reveal how they know it, then that reveals who told them.
Well, Charlotte, it's almost becoming a moot point, because I don't want to jinx it, but the operation is going so well, so quickly, so efficiently that by this weekend, look, I want you to know, we're Thursday. If the regime falls, I am going to make preparations to come and do a special show. I'm off Saturday and Sunday, and I know there's a lot of paid programming, but if the regime falls, this will be one of the. It's like the Victory in Europe Day. It's going to be one of these historic days, a turning point in history, in world history, and I'm going to make preparations to come on the air. And then, you can reveal everything, because there are, the mullahs are gone. So you're not protecting anybody because the mullahs can't retaliate because they're gone. So I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to get premature about this. But if this continues the way it's going, I have to say this, Charlotte. I'm military analysts, people who've served in the armed forces, in our military, have been texting me now the last couple of days saying, Jeff, I don't think people understand how incredible this operation is performing. That they're like, you don't understand. This is Iran, 100 million people. They have spent hundreds of billions of dollars over many decades building up their military. Everybody thought you fight Iran. Yeah, we'll win. Of course we'll win. But it's going to be a tough slog. I mean, it's going to be a real war. That they are folding or at least being defeated so easily. It's mind-boggling. So, they're evaporating right in front of our eyes. So we'll see. But if they collapse and they fall, and they may fall even by this weekend, then you are looking at a new chapter in world history. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. And then I would say to the administration, yeah, please show us. Show us everything. Now it's in your interest to show us everything because you're not compromising anybody or anything because the mullahs are gone. So we shall see. Okay, we shall see. Charlotte, fingers crossed. I don't want any more soldiers of ours to die. And if the mullahs could be sent into the dustbin of history, believe me, the world will rejoice. And if we could have then a stable successor government in place where, the Iranians are living in a much better country and with a much better system and a much better government, well, then I'm telling you right now, as I said, it's high risk, high reward. Then Trump will go down in history probably now as the greatest president of all time. And by the way, I think it will clinch his victory in the midterms. This is almost an all or nothing operation. I think people will say, look, this is magnificent. It's removed a threat that has plagued us for 50 years at such minimal loss of life, executed almost to a T. Then I think you're looking at a massive Republican victory. You're not going to believe this. So now Azerbaijan, okay, which I'm not a big fan of the Azerbaijanis, but anyway, they've been menacing the Armenians. They overtook Nagorno-Karabakh and massacred a lot of Armenian Christians, but let that go. They're a Muslim country that neighbors Iran. By the way, Turkey as well. They're basically Turkey's cat's paw. Long story short, the crazy mullahs have now fired missiles into Azerbaijan. And apparently they hit their main airport. They also apparently hit a school in a village. So anyway, there are casualties. People are injured. They're being taken to the hospital. The Azerbaijani government is going absolutely ballistic, saying that this is an unprovoked act of aggression by the mullahs and that, quote, we will respond. To which the Americans and the Israelis are saying, look, we got this. Don't worry about it. We're bombing the hell out of them. No. They're saying, no. We want to pay them back like our style. This is a Muslim country. It's a Sunni country, but still, it is a Muslim country. They've now just attacked another neighboring country, another Muslim neighboring country, and now the Azerbaijanis are out for blood. But by the time these moron mullahs are done, they're going to have the entire world unified against them. This is your strategy to defeat us? I've never seen this before. You're being attacked by the United States and Israel. What's your response? You bomb all your neighbors around you. Allah, Allah, Allah. And you're bombing fellow Muslims on top of it all. Allah, Allah, Allah. Oh, my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. 6-1. You know, I feel so sorry for the poor Iranian people. I really do. Being run by these savages for 50 years. Seriously. Ay, 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 ay. 617-266-6868. Bill in Melrose. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Hey, Kuhner. You know, you've been talking a lot, so I don't want to. I had some stuff to say about Mark Levin, but I'll save that for another time.
No, please don't save it. Go, Bill. Please, go.
You want me to go?
Yes, please.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. You know what? Hollywood Mark, all right? That's what I like to call him. Hollywood Mark Levin. He's lost touch, all right? To be going after the bulldozer, huge mistake, all right? Because if he thinks this is just, a matter of he can just sort of throw that grenade and hide behind something, it's a big mistake. You're the bulldozer. This is Boston, okay? If this is and you know what? He's not ready for that sort of conflict with you. And frankly, to me, knowing Mark and how he operates, it's probably just a hog measuring competition. And let's be real here.
Mike, how the hell is this guy not caller of the week? This is caller of the week. Huh? I mean, it's this. Bill, I only have eyes for my wife. But I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. Bill, call more often, my friend. I love this call. I love this call. Mine's bigger than his. Oh, I swear, best audience in the business. Bill, God bless you, my friend. You made my day. Paul in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Jeff, I'm going to make a quick couple of points.
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
The same divisiveness that we're experiencing with the Democrats and the Republicans, it's accelerated in the last 10 years. Would you not say there's a parallel between that and the 1,000 years that Muslims have been at each other's throat?
Oh, you mean between the Shia and the Sunni?
Yeah, and all the other clans. I mean,
No, it's very similar now. It's tribal.
Right. So having said that,
go ahead.
I think the best scenario is Trump's worst scenario. Damage the malls, but keep them in place. We need a strong controlling force to keep these nuts in line, and they're all nuts. And I'll leave with one last point. What have we been saying? That the Iranians could never have a nuclear weapon, right? Well, and this is a serious point. The Democrats can never have a nuclear weapon, and by that I mean taking power. I'm convinced that some of the moonbat, deranged Democrats, if they had a nuclear weapon and the ability to push the button to blow up Trump, they would. That's how radical they have become. So we cannot afford to lose the midterms.
Paul, we've got less than a minute. Do you think, in the end, if a military strongman emerges who can govern Iran, effectively stable, with some stability, no nuclear weapons, no ballistic missiles, no threat to us, to their neighbors, they stop funding terrorism, is that good enough? Is that a victory for you?
And I'll tell you why. We are no more going to change the radical Muslims in the reach they have throughout the globe than we would be hoping to assassinate Putin and then install a peaceful government in Russia or China.
That's a great analogy. It's a great analogy.